All right, boys and girls, in this video, we're going to go over lesson 2-2, and we're going to go over the main math message. So you may be at home sick, and this is just going to be a great way for you to see what we learned in class and to make sure that you stay caught up with what we're doing in class and that you don't get behind, okay? So in lesson 2-2, what we're working on is using diagrams or drawings to help solve number stories or word problems, okay? In Unit 2, we're going to be doing lots of number stories or word problems, okay? Now, guys, when we do word problems, I really want to encourage you to make some drawings. Okay, that is like a big rule of mine. Draw a picture. It really helps you to know what to do with the problem when you can draw out a picture. We're also going to look at some of the diagrams, and you looked at these diagrams a little bit in second grade, and these diagrams, you can start plugging numbers in, and those diagrams will really help you when we start writing number models to match our word problems. All right, so let's look at, this is just a little bit of a guide to solving number stories or word problems. Guys, when you are solving a word problem, you got to make sense of the problem. Okay, this is more than just, doing a math problem on the page. There's a lot of reading to it, a lot of trying to sort it out, make sense of it. So you got to read the problem carefully. And you got to think about, what do I understand? What do I know about the problem? Okay, and that was the next thing. What do you know? And then you really got to look to see, what do you need to find out? That's why drawing pictures will help you, because as you're reading the problem, if you're drawing pictures of what's going on, that's going to help you to determine what you know. And then when you read that question, you're going to be able to figure out, well, what is it that I need to find out? Okay? So we got to come up with a plan. So you got to decide what you're going to do. Are you going to be adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? And we're going to look at a lot of clue words when we're reading problems that's going to help us to decide which operation we're going to do. Okay? I want to go over this word operation. All of these, when you hear me say in math, operation, okay, it's not like heart surgery or getting your tonsils out. This kind of operation, when I say, what operation did you use? I'm talking about adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Okay? What are you going to do? Are you going to draw a picture? And I really hope you do. Are you going to draw a diagram? And we'll look at diagrams and see which one. Sometimes diagrams might confuse you, and you might say, I don't like these diagrams. And others of you might go, whoo, boy, that diagram really helped me. So we're going to find those strategies that work best for you. Sometimes you might need to make a table, or you might need to make a graph. Sometimes you might need to write a number model. Really pay attention to the directions if the teacher or if the problem asks you to write a number model. Maybe you might be using counters or base 10 blocks to help you solve. Maybe you're making tallies. Maybe you're using a number grid or maybe a number line. Okay, so you kind of got to develop a plan for what you're going to do. And then with solving your problem, please be sure that you show your work. So many of you want to just write down your answer. I really need you to show your work. If you made a drawing, keep that drawing. I see boys and girls all the time. They'll make this drawing, and then before they turn it in, they erase all of their work. I'm like, well, why did you erase all that? And they're like, well, I didn't want you to see all that. Well, I want to see it. I want to see what your brain was doing. Okay? Oh, this one's so important. Keep trying if you get stuck. Guys, don't give up. Okay, we got to have some perseverance. We got to work hard this year. Reread the problem. Read it, reread it, read it, reread it. Really, don't give up. Think about the strategies you have already tried and maybe try a different strategy. Okay, and then always write your answer with the units. And what I mean by is label it. Okay, if you're trying to figure out how many dogs there are, then when you put your answer down, let's say you found out that there were 10 dogs, then I need you to write the word dogs. Okay, so always label your unit. Okay, and then, oh, boys and girls, this part is so important. Boys and girls skip this step all the time. When you're done, when you think you're done, I want you to stop, take a deep breath, look at your answer, and then ask yourself, does your answer make sense? Does it even make sense? Okay, so many times we just flop down an answer and we move on to the next problem and we never even thought if our answer made any kind of sense. And then think about, well, how do I know it makes sense? Okay, don't skip this step, guys. I know it takes just a little bit of extra work, but please, please, please never skip that step of stopping and asking yourself, does this make sense and how do I know? All right, so now, sorry this is a little bit blurry. I'm not sure why it's blurry. But these are some of the situation diagrams that you were introduced to in second grade. So this might look really familiar to some of you, and some of you might say, I've never seen that a day in my life, especially maybe if you weren't here at West Branch and working with everyday math. All right, so look at some of our situation diagrams. These are just some of the diagrams we have that we can plug numbers into when we're doing word problems. I call this the part-part total model. Okay, and think about what this one is. That's with if you have part of it over here and part of it over here, what are you going to do to get the total? Well, these two parts equal your total, right? So this is one of those things where I'm just going to pretend I'm going to use letters. So if I have a letter A here and I have a letter B here, I'm going to do A plus B to equal that C. Okay? Or maybe I'm going to start with my total and subtract part of it to get the other part. So this is a really great diagram for addition or subtraction because you're just adding the two parts up to get your total. All right, this is the start, change, end diagram. You might start with a number and then something happens to it. It changes. You know, maybe you're starting with so much money and then you're spending it. Or maybe you're starting with so much money and you're earning more. Something's happening to that number. And then you're getting the number that you're ending with. Okay? These will make a lot more sense once we start working on some problems. And then you've got your quantity difference. Now, when I hear the word difference, I know that that's all about subtracting. Okay, if I'm finding the difference, I know I'm going to be subtracting. So this is one of those diagrams where you're starting with a number and then you might be comparing it. Maybe you're finding out how many fewer, how many greater. So you know one of the quantities, but you're trying to find the other quantity or the difference. So this is a really great number model when you know that you need to subtract. Okay? All right. Again, these will make much more sense once we get into some problems. All right, let me see if I can get my... All right, so now, I don't know if this is in your workbook or not. Let me double check that. I'm going to pause this and double check. All right, yes, ladies and gentlemen, these problems here that we're about to do are on page 35 in your workbook. So if you want to pause the video for a second, get your workbook and turn to page 35, and you can just do it right along with me. Sometimes I say, hey, do that workbook page first, and then we'll go over it. But in this case, I'm going to let you go ahead and fill in the workbook as we go. Now, you might need to pause the video from time to time so that you can write or finish out something that we're doing. So please take that time to pause the video when you need to. All right, so now let's look. Again, I've got some situation diagrams up here. We may be using these a little bit. I'll show you some of the ways that you may use them. But we're going to solve the number stories and we're going to be writing our answers and then explaining how we know they make sense. So let's look at number 1. It says that 2 pythons each laid a clutch of eggs. One clutch had 47 eggs. The other had 32 eggs. How many eggs were there in all? Okay, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to reread it. First of all, I might not know what a clutch means, but kind of using context clues, I know that we're talking about eggs and we're talking about pythons. So a clutch of eggs kind of makes me think of like maybe a nest of eggs. Okay, so I know that I have 2 pythons. So if I'm drawing a picture, maybe I'm drawing 2 snakes. Now remember, when I'm drawing math pictures, they are not to be all fancy and detailed. Okay? Don't waste your time. Something very quick and easy. So I'm just going to start drawing out what I know. I know I have 2 pythons, so I draw 2 little squiggly lines. Each of them laid a clutch of eggs. One clutch had 47 eggs, so here's this one snake. He laid a clutch of 47 eggs. The other had 32 eggs. So here's the other snake, 32 eggs. I'm just drawing what I see, guys. Then read that question. So I drew what I know. I know I've got 2 pythons. I know each one of them laid a clutch of eggs, and I wrote down the numbers. That's what I know. Now let's look to see what I'm trying to find out. How many eggs were there in all? These are big clue words. In all. If I want to know how many in all, what am I going to do? I want to know how many in all. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to add them together, right? I'm going to add my 47 plus my 32. All right, so that's what my number model is going to be, guys. My number model is going to be 47 plus 32 equals question mark, because I don't know yet. Okay, my number model is just showing how I'm going to solve that problem, or what I need to do with all the information in that problem. Okay. All right, so now I got to answer the question. Now, boys and girls, we haven't really gotten into yet this year any really good, quick and easy strategies for 47 plus 32. Now, I know if you're at home, your parents are probably having you write out the problem like this and do the adding. And I'm saying, hey, that's fine. If you can do it that way and you understand what you're doing, do it. We're actually going to get to this year, I promise. We're going to make your parents so happy here in a few more weeks, because we're actually going to do the regular old-fashioned way of adding. But sometimes you're like, I have no idea, Mom and Dad, what you are doing. And that's okay. We can always draw base 10 blocks, right? So if I want to do 47, 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I want to add 32 more, 10, 20, 30, 1, 2, now I can just add them together, okay? I'm going to add my ones first to make sure I don't need to make an extra set of tens. So when I have 7 ones plus 2 ones, then I just have 9 ones. Is that enough to make another 10? No. So I'm just going to put my 9 ones, and then I'm going to add up my tens. I have 4 tens and 3 tens, so I've got 79. Okay. Now, 79 what? Remember that unit. I said label it. 79 what? 79 snakes? Go back and read your question to find your unit. Here's your question. Go back. How many eggs were there in all? So 79 eggs is my answer. Okay. Now, if I were putting this into one of these situation diagrams, which one of these diagrams do you think would really work for this problem? You can pause the video if you want and give yourself a chance to think about it. I think this problem is perfect for the part total, because there were 2 different parts, right? There was 2 different clutches of eggs, and I knew in one part was 47 and in the other part was 32. And how do I find the total? Well, if I add these 2 parts together, that's going to give me the total. So you can also plug those numbers into one of those situation diagrams. All right, so now it says, how do you know your answer makes sense? Well, I think my answer makes sense because I know that there's 2 different nests of eggs, and this nest has close to 50, right? Isn't 47 close to 50? And this one has close to 30. 32 is a little bit more, but close to 30. So when I know that I'm putting those 2 together, so 50 plus 30 is 80. So isn't 79 close to 80? So I could just say that. How do you know your answer makes sense? And I'm going to say, well, I know I needed to add because I was putting them together to find out in all, and it's about 50 plus 30, so that's about 80. Okay, all right, let's go to the next problem. All right, this time, now it's about an alligator clutch. Okay, so an alligator clutch had 60 eggs. I'm going to underline that because I know it's numbers. And okay, you know what, I'm just going to start drawing. So I know an alligator clutch had 60 eggs. So I'm going to put 60 eggs. I'm just going to put 60E for eggs. Okay. Now it says that only 12 hatched. So of these 60 eggs, 12 of them hatched. Okay. So how am I going to show that 12 of these hatched? Let's read on. How many eggs did not hatch? Oh, okay. So now I only have one clutch of eggs. Out of that clutch, some of them hatched and some of them didn't. So I'm kind of like making two different parts, right? Some that hatched and some that did not. Well, how many hatched? 12. How many did not? Well, I don't know. What am I going to do? Guys, if I know how many eggs I have and some of them hatched and I want to know how many didn't, what kind of math am I doing? You can pause the video if you want, kind of think about it, maybe even try to work out the problem and then restart the video. Okay, I'm kind of thinking I'm going to put my numbers into one of these situation diagrams. Okay, actually I can see two different diagrams. Actually, I could see all three diagrams working for this. Okay, let's look at the part total model. First of all, I know that there's a total of 60 eggs. That's how many eggs there are in all. That's the total. There's two different parts. Some that hatched, some that didn't. Some hatched were 12. The other part, I don't know, so I'm going to put a question mark in there. Okay? I could also use the start, change, end. Guys, we started with 60 eggs. Something happened, right? What happened? Well, they hatched. When they hatched, do you think they probably left that clutch or left that nest, right? So they went away, didn't they? So minus 12, and then how much did we end up with that didn't hatch? Well, I don't know yet. I'm going to put my question mark there. And then also the quantity difference. Quantity is kind of like starting with the total. I know that I have a total of 60. Okay. I know that part of them hatched 12, and I want to know the difference. All right, so now I got to decide what to do with these numbers. I know I have the number 60. I know I have the number 12. I got to decide if I'm going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Well, Mrs. McMullen taught me that multiplication was equal groups of something. Do I have equal groups of anything? No. Okay. Division, well, am I taking something and dividing it up into equal groups? No. What about adding? If I add 60 plus 12, I'll get 82. Will that make sense? So I have 82 eggs that didn't hatch? Well, does that make sense? Coming down to here, does that make sense? Can you have more eggs not hatched than what you even started with? That wouldn't make sense at all to add those numbers. That leaves me with subtraction. Guys, that leaves me with subtraction. And really, my situation diagrams tell me that. Okay? So my number model is going to be 60 minus the 12 eggs that hatched equals question mark. Okay? You could have written another number model, thinking of fact families. You could have said, well, 12, the ones that hatched, okay, the ones that hatched, plus the ones that didn't, I don't know how many that is yet, so I'm just going to say question mark, equals 60. If I take the ones that hatched and the ones that didn't and add them together, I'll get my total. Both of these number models will work for this problem. Okay? So you either need to start with 12 and figure out how many more you need to add to get to 60, or start with 60 and subtract 12. Okay, so that's what you're going to have to do. If you didn't do that already, pause the video. I want to see if you can solve this problem on your own. Okay, now let's go ahead and solve it together and see if you were correct. All right, I keep accidentally erasing some of my work here. All right, I'm going to solve it both ways. I'm going to start with starting with 60 and subtracting 12. I'm going to do base 10 blocks. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. I need to subtract 12. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 12. Well, I can subtract 10, but I still need to subtract 2 ones, and I don't have any ones over here. I'm going to take a 10 and turn it into ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's called borrowing, by the way, and we'll get to the, tell your parents, never fear, we're going to get to the old-fashioned way of subtracting this year too. We're going to make them very, very happy parents. But for now, base 10 blocks will work for us. So now I still need to take away my 2. Didn't work out so well. Now I got to see what I have left. I have 48. Okay, so my answer is 48. Now, let's try it doing the addition way. Let me erase all my chicken scratch here. If I start with 12, how many more do I need to get to 60? I'm going to use an open number line. I'm starting with 12. I need to get to 60. Well, let's first jump to an easy number. Always jump to a 10. 2 plus 8 equals 10, so 12 plus 8 equals 20. Again, going back a couple lessons ago, we talked about knowing combinations of 10. Knowing that 2 plus 8 is 10 is going to help you with this. Now I need to get from 20 to 60. Knowing how to count by tens is going to help you. I know that 20 plus 40 is going to get me to 60. So starting with 12 and adding 8, then 40, gets me to 60. Altogether, I added, again, 48. I got the same answer, just one way I subtracted and one way I added. All right, my unit. Well, let me go back to my question. How many eggs did not hatch? 48 eggs did not hatch. Okay, how do I know my answer makes sense? Well, you know what? Remember when I added it together earlier? When I added 60 plus 12, I got 82. And that doesn't make sense because I shouldn't have more eggs not hatching than what I even started with. So my answer of 48 makes sense because I had 60. I'm taking some away. I'm taking about 10 away. And so when I do 60 minus about 10, just to make easy math in my head, that's going to be about 50 should be left. Is 48 close to 50? Yes, it is. So I know my answer makes sense. All right, we're going to have the opportunity for a lot more practice in class and as this week goes on. This week is going to be really, really heavy in word problems. All right, guys, that is it for the math message for lesson 2-2. We are working on word problems and making sense of them. You know what? Actually, and I don't know why I don't have it on this screen. So boys and girls, I don't even have it, but actually there is more practice if you turn to page, what is it, 36. There is actually more practice for you to do. And so why don't you go ahead and do that? Pause the video, do numbers 3 and 4 on page 36, and then you know what? I don't have it on my screen, but I'll come back and go over them to make sure you have the correct answers. So pause the video, do those next 2 problems on page 36, and then restart the video. Okay, so hopefully you did those problems and you're not just faking it. And let's look at the problems. I'm sorry that I don't have them up on my screen. It says that Ahmed had $22 in his bank account. For his birthday, his grandmother deposited $25 for him. So how much money is in his bank account now? Well, I'm going to start drawing a picture. Okay, I'm going to reread the problem again. And as I reread it, I'm just going to start drawing things. Okay, quick math drawings. So Ahmed had $22 in his bank account. So I'm going to draw his bank account. Okay, $22. This is his account. Or I can say bank. Okay. Now for his birthday, his grandmother deposited $25 for him. So I'm going to make another box and say 25. And what was that 25? That was deposited, right? How much money is in his bank account now? So I want to know how much is in there now. Well, let's see here. Something that's going to be really important for you to know is what deposit means. Okay, every year I have boys and girls get this problem wrong because they're not really sure what deposit means. Deposit means you're putting more money in. If you make a deposit to your account gets bigger and bigger. The opposite would be withdrawing from your account. So if grandma's depositing money, grandma's putting more money in. So if I want to know how much is in his account now, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to take what he had, I'm going to add what grandma put in, and then that's going to give me my answer. Okay, so now I got to solve it. And again, you can kind of solve it any way you want to. I'm going to add, I know that 20 plus 20 is 40. And I know that 2 plus 5 is 7. You could have drawn that out in base 10 blocks. If your parents have showed you this strategy here, you could have done that strategy. We'll get to that in class. I will not be doing this quite yet, but I'm okay if your parents are helping you as long as you understand it. And so my answer is $47. And when I'm labeling my unit, if I have my dollar symbol there, that is labeling my unit. Okay, and I always put my dollar sign in front of it. A lot of times boys and girls want to do this. They want to put the dollar sign after because we say $47. That's just not really the correct way to write it. We always put our dollar symbol in front of. So that's actually labeling it because what am I trying to find out? I'm trying to find out how much money. So that dollar symbol is labeling my unit. Okay. How do you know your answer makes sense? Well, the end answer has to be greater than my starting answer, right? If I would have subtracted these numbers, well, then I would have ended up with a really small number, right? And I know that if I'm depositing, I'm putting more in, I know that my ending number should be a lot bigger. All right, so now let's look at number 4. Let me get a clean sheet here. All right, it says Omar had $53 in his piggy bank. He used 16 to take his sister to the movies and buy treats. How much money is left in his piggy bank? All right, I'm going to reread it again. I'm going to start drawing pictures. So Omar had $53 in his piggy bank. So I'm going to put 53. I'm just going to kind of put that, and this is in his bank. Okay, now let's see what's going on. He used $16 to take his sister to the movies. So $16, I'm going to label that used it. Okay, used. How much money is left? Boys and girls, when you see that word left, that's a really big clue word that guess what's going to be happening? I'm going to be subtracting. Okay? So he started with $53. He spent some. He used it. So I'm going to subtract my 16. Okay? And that is going to give me how much is left. All right, so now let's do, let's solve this. So 53 minus 16. Let's see, if I do 53 minus 10, that's going to get me to 43, right? So I subtracted the 10. Now I've got to subtract the 6. So 43 minus 6, well, I know that 43 minus 3 is 40, and I'd have to subtract 3 more, so that's going to get me to 37. Maybe I did base 10 blocks, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 1, 2, 3, and I need to subtract 16. So I'm going to subtract 1 10 and 6 ones. Well, I don't have 6 ones, so I'm going to borrow. take this 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Don't forget to exchange it out for 10 tens. I mean 10 ones, sorry. And now I can subtract my 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's see what I've got left. I've got 37. Okay, still the same answer. 37 what? 37 eggs? No, it says how much money is left in his piggy bank, so $37. Now, how do you know your answer makes sense? Well, I think my answer makes sense because I know that my answer should be less than 53, right? He started with $53 in his bank account. He used some, so I know my answer is going to be less because he's using it. So my answer makes sense. If I would have added these two numbers together, my answer wouldn't have made sense because then I would have had a bigger amount than what I started with even after I spent it. That doesn't make any sense, does it? All right, so boys and girls, that is the end of lesson 2-2, and we'll do more word problems as the week goes along.